is advised.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the discussion for Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. This is going to encompass really all of them. They all follow the same because it's Sherlock Holmes. So the first thing I want to get out of the way is this is one of the very first games that came out in this genre. I think there was a game called Scotland Yard specifically that came out earlier. I have not played that one, but this was... They had a earlier version of the Bakers... Not the Baker Street, the regulars, the Thames and Other Murder Cases, the brown box. Mm-hmm. There was a previous box, like by Yatari, which is now it's under, I think Space Cowboys does these. So this was one of the very first kind of whodunit, cooperative, solve a case kind of thing. First you have a case, we know the answers now. If we did this anytime soon, we'd know the answers. Right. Very first thing I gotta say is this game is definitely not for everyone. It is a majority of reading. There's very little actually doing stuff. Like the map is really more aesthetics.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
although it did give us a clue. In this case, it did give us a clue.
The map. Yes, the maps is actually useful if you want to take the time to look at it.
Everything is useful.
Yeah. But this is kind of more on that verge of the debate of is this a game or is this an activity? I'd probably say this is more of an activity.
Is a
honestly.
game not an activity?
No, people throw a huge fucking fit about the
kidding.
two. Yeah, it's actually a huge thing of what constitutes a game versus an activity.
Weird.
I don't really delineate that, but this one is you are sitting around reading to each other.
Mm-hmm. And thinking.
And thinking. With that being said, while I would play Chronicles of Crime, Detective Modern Crime board game, Detective City of Angels, while I'd play all those before this one, because this one kind of is dated, and we'll talk about that a little bit. I still think that these are fantastic.
Still holds up.
Because after we have played those many more times than we actually came back to this one, this still holds up. The cases are always solid. They're never done in a way kind of like you read and you're like, oh, this is so obvious, like what kind of our run through was, and then it's like, oh god, we were like not even fucking close.
How to have the wind knocked out of your sails 101.
Yeah, pretty much. Which also can be a negative. It can be demoralizing if you want, because there's really no difficulty level.
Right.
Like you think, oh, case one, this is going to be easy. No,
not
really. Because in all those other games, it gives you a difficulty level, like on the cases, to where so you kind of can gauge how much effort you need to put into it. That is not done here. This is just
until the end. Then you find out how easy it should have been.
Right. So we played Deadline recently. Mm-hmm. Now we've played this. Brett, which one do you prefer?
Hard to compare because one I liked.
It was Deadline, wasn't it?
No.
Obviously.
No. I mean, it's hard to compare because I wouldn't even consider them the same genre.
Right.
That isn't so much an investigation and deduction as we're just trying to accomplish these tasks.
Right.
It's much more of a classic board game style. This is more of, this feels like something that people who really like mystery novels and people who really like Sherlock Holmes type stories would just eat up. Yeah. Because you're actually part of the story as it develops in controlling the action as opposed to just reading the words. Right.
You actually mentioned it actually feels kind of like a novel. Mm-hmm. If you're going the right direction, it feels like a cohesive novel. But yeah, choose your own adventure. You get the opening case, and then it's like, okay, as detectives, where do you want to go? Mm-hmm. Well, scene of the crime is always a good place to start. Let's go there.
We did not start with that.
We did. Yes, we did. We did start with scene of the crime. Nope, we got nothing out of it.
Oh, yeah. Yes, we did.
And yeah, it's always something that you are always invested. Even with a story like this, where it's like, oh, the kidnapping. Oh, like we're gonna try and find the girl, and it's like, oh no. That's not the case. She's the kidnappee, and she's the one that comes to us. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, okay. And then because I was feeling kind of like this is a weird case, like that we're on. Normally it's like, oh, who killed Smithy? And it's like, oh, we got to find the murderer. Yeah. And there's usually crime items that we need to go to. And here we were like, no, there's no items. There's none of that. There's no...
Well, it's an evolution of the series. That they take a different approach with this box.
Yes.
Perhaps.
Yeah. This one almost feels like it's kind of trying to tell the story of the people that work for Holmes. Mm-hmm. Especially in case 1 was talking about, oh, hey, they're the Baker Street irregulars. These are the people who work for Holmes. Versus just kind of like the very first box was really Holmes and Watson.
Yeah, and his heroine.
And his heroine, yeah. And heroine is mentioned, actually not at all that I can think of.
Opioids are. Back when it was just rampant in the city.
Right. So in terms of the deduction and analyzing, what do you guys think?
Frustrating. But pleasant.
Yeah?
Very pleasant.
Boy, is there some deduction.
Yeah.
Because, as soon as we go into the park, you're like, let's check out the lodge. And I was like, I don't see what any of this has to do with anything.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, of course, we start putting it together. But, man, it's not leaps by any means. But your brain, your third eye has to be open. All your chakras have to be aligned. You have to have rubbed all your crystals and stuck them up your butt before you play this game. Because you have to be on your game.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But, I mean, Sherlock Holmes stories, you've got to be looking for that, or Agatha Christie or any of the other mysteries.
For those
you got to be looking
things.
for that little thing that was just put out there. I mean, even I grew up reading Encyclopedia Brown, which you guys have probably never heard of.
I have only heard of
it.
the name.
But basically, simplified version of the same thing. The answer is there, but it's just glossed over, and you got to grab it and just go, oh, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
With the cigars, we knew that something was going to happen with the cigars, but we're like, what?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, missed their importance.
Because what's interesting is this is a game, unlike Chronicles of Crime or Detective, all those, where you're given a paragraph of something, and this is not one of those games that it connects the dots for you.
Right.
You have to take that paragraph and basically analyze everything about it. Okay, why was this said? Okay, that person didn't want to talk to us. Why did he not want to talk to us? Well, we immediately think he's guilty, or she's guilty. And then you as detectives immediately are like, you go on that trail.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that this one kind of works, because there's not so much to physically handle like in some of those other games, that you can actually play this game with more people. Because it could be me and Kat saying, oh, that person's guilty because of this reason, and you can be like, well, what about this? Having more brains actually helps out a lot more with this one, because it's not like everyone's trying to fucking grab cards and read cards and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You have multiple note takers. You have to take notes when you're playing this game, otherwise you might as well just read the book front to back. Because it's insane. There was something in I guess some small spoilers for the first case, which is what we did our run through over. There was a point in the solution where it was like, oh, that person didn't want to talk to us. It was actually out of guilt, not out of suspicion.
Right.
And it's like, oh yeah, that sucks because we don't know how he said it. And that's an age of the game versus what else has come by. Because in Detective Modern Crime board game, when you interrogate someone, it gives you like a LSL, which means low stress level, MSL medium, and HSL for high. And so the game gives you stuff to go off of. Oh, he says this, LSL. That must be the truth. He wasn't stressed about it. He says this, high. He's lying. It gives you something. Unfortunately, just reading from the casebook, you get none of that. You get no inflections. You only can go off interpretation.
Unless it's specifically said, which it does. But it doesn't. They don't say anything in there to make you suspicious or to lead you down a path.
Right.
It's just simply factual.
Exactly. It's just this. Here it is.
So you're missing something.
And you, as players and readers, have to sit there and think, okay, that sounds suspicious. He wanted to stay on that shift, and but that also goes off of, well, we didn't have the full picture. Like, we missed every question, pretty much every single question.
Yeah.
And if we had gone the right direction, like, because even stuff that were mentioned, oh, she took regular walks in the park, and it's like we never even went there until later. Like we were so focused on the kidnapping part, trying to figure out who it was, that we completely went a different path.
Well, it was a kidnapping case until
it wasn't.
At the end, when we were told, "Oh, by the way, this is kidnapping has almost nothing to do with it."
It's hard not to meta because playing these games before, it's like, okay, it's not about the kidnapping. We know it's not going to be about this, like, but we still have to find out who did it because at the end of the day, someone did do it. But why? Mm-hmm. Like, this is definitely a game where the Y is capitalized, like capital WH Y.
Why? Yeah.
Because there's always some random like you said, like. Why did the Wiggins gang do it? Who's the Wiggins gang?
Yeah. And, oh man, and that's so rough. So one of my, and all of them do it actually, but you never know the questions until it's over. And this one and Mythos Tales. Mythos Tales is Cthulhu, but it does the exact same. But you have a booklet, you have a story, you have a directory, you have a map, and stuff like that. It's pretty much the exact. You even have newspapers. It's the exact same thing, but the difference between that one is it gives you a deadline. It's like, hey, you have 10 leads to get this done.
Right.
Here, it's open-ended.
Yeah.
You could read through the whole book. Okay, you can keep going. But the game mechanics are, well, Sherlock did in a certain number of leads. You never know how much. So you never want to sit there and do 30 leads.
Yeah.
Because you get a final score. And it's like, well, we know Sherlock didn't do it in 30. He probably did it in 1. I went to the scene of the crime and figured it all out. I'm wickedly autistic. And it's like, yeah, we know. Take more heroin so you're dumber. But I don't know which one I prefer, honestly. I like the idea of having, hey, because you have a little marker that tracks, how many leads you've done. And it's like, by the end of this, but once this marker reaches this marker, you have to answer the questions.
Right.
Versus this one, where it's up to us when to stop.
See, and just right there, that difference, that can be critical for people's enjoyment. Mm-hmm. The key question is for which one you prefer is: are you playing a game to try to accomplish the goal of the game, or are you solving a mystery?
Right.
If you're solving a mystery, it didn't matter to me how long it took. Mm-hmm. I could have gone on further. I thought I was closer than I was, but I didn't know how far the hooks were going to be, having never done this before. Mm-hmm. But it is interesting that one of them's more of a game. This is more of a story evolving in front of you. Yeah,
yeah, and I think it's interesting because both mechanics, you want your leads to be, you want your leads to matter.
Yeah.
And in this one, if your lead doesn't matter, it doesn't hurt as bad.
Right.
Because it's not a finite number. Hey, we only have 10 leads in this case. Here, we have as many as we want, but that's probably going to be an extra one. And they try to compensate for that because some of the leads it mentions, that one's free, it doesn't count.
Right.
And we didn't go to any of them. But it's kind of like, it's like, okay, we did go there, it didn't pan out, but hey, that's not minus 5 points. Right. But yeah, it can definitely be demoralizing because you when you don't know the questions, you never know quite when to stop.
Yeah.
Which can be annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought we were much closer than we were.
Right. And it's like, we could have kept going, and I mean, we would have gotten if we went down that path, we would have probably ended at how many leads did we end at? 14?
Yeah.
Probably 20, 25 leads, but we might have gotten those because the 4 questions were 25 points each.
Right.
So it's like, okay, well, maybe we would have gotten the bonus questions. Because I believe they are, for this case, the total amount of points is 120, 30, 40, 50, 160. 160 points. And it's not hard and fast with answering. Sometimes, it's just like, who did it? Or with the bonus questions, what was little Timmy's sickness? And it's like, well, we kind of think it's this. And if you're loosely close, I usually always just kind of give it.
Yeah.
Give us the points.
As long as we're in the ballpark.
Yeah. But again, that's still the difference between, are you playing a game to win, or are you solving a mystery?
Right.
Yeah.
Which, I mean,
solving a mystery. I didn't care about the points. I didn't care about how long it took.
Right.
And we were still so far off, and I still enjoyed losing.
Yeah.
As badly as we did.
Right. It's just... And the good thing about doing it this way, more talking about I prefer it this way, because at least you can go through the whole book and get the story. Mm-hmm. in Mythos Tales, oh, we only have 10 leads, we ran out, I guess we don't get to continue. Like, we get to be told the story at the end. Here, it's just like, oh, yeah, well, we did 25 leads, and we got some of the questions right, but then we get the rest of the story, or we get Holmes's, solution.
Here's everything that you missed because you didn't go the right spots.
Yeah. And so that still feels good. You still get to play the game instead of being like, oh, we only have 3 more leads. And actually, in that one, you could lose leads. It's like, oh, because it's mythical. There's monsters, and it's like, oh, you get knocked out, lose 2 leads, and it's like, that's annoying.
Yeah.
None of that happens here. Like,
right.
None of them are like, this counts for 7 leads or something. Kat, what do you think?
About just it in general? Oh, I mean, I like it. I still like it. I've always liked it. I remember when we first started playing these, I definitely side, I guess, if there's a debate on if this is a game or an activity, it's more on the activity.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some, like, subscription stuff that you can do now about, like, catch a murderer or like, where you're solving your own mystery, and this is definitely, like, in that same vein that they're trying to emulate. And it does it really well. It's pretty much a live action book reading.
Yeah, pretty much.
Of trying to figure things out. It makes me want to, read Sherlock Holmes books. I remember reading Hounds of Baskerville when I was in elementary school. It was like the kid version.
Right. Just told you immediately who did it.
Yeah.
It was the Hounds.
It was the Hounds.
Spoiler.
They lived in Baskerville, by the way. But I remember, like, it's intriguing. It keeps you engaged. Points don't really matter. You're doing it to have a good time.
Yeah, this is whose line this is anyway of board games.
You get 1,000,000 points, but they don't matter.
Right.
And it's just fun. It's fun seeing what everything has to say, trying to connect the dots. I always enjoy the note-taking part, kind of just table talk, throwing out theories, whether how right or wrong you are. It's a good time.
Yeah.
Right, because, the theory that we came up with, that was still intriguing. And actually, I liked our theory better than what actually it ended up being. It's like, wow, that's kind of fucking lame.
We were like, this family's a piece of shit, and they're all in on it.
Right? I was like, that's way cooler.
The mom's addicted to opioids.
Now, with that being said, here's where this game definitely shows its age. Obviously, it's been out for years, and all the other games are newer. Whenever you find out new information, you as the players have to delineate and connect the dots yourselves. In Chronicles of Crime, for example, there's an app, you scan QR codes, and people move around locations and stuff. If you go to a location, you find, or you talk to a guy who was at that area, and he's like, oh, I didn't see nothing. And then you go back to the search area, and then you talk to someone else, they give you information about that guy. In that game, you can go back and talk to that guy and ask them about, oh, well, this person fucking said you had this. And then he'll give you a different response. Right. It's progressive, it makes sense, because you can go back and talk to people and be like, well, this person is saying this. You don't get that here.
Right.
You are given a slate, like, we can't go back, like, we can't go ask Wendy about her relationship with the guy. Right. You just have to kind of speculate and take everything for face value and come up with the story yourselves. That's why this game isn't for everyone. Like, the other ones, I believe, are still way better because you have that interaction, you have that progression, that movement, that real-life atmosphere of, hey, this makes sense. I found a weapon at the scene of the crime that has someone's fingerprints on it. I can go talk to that person about whose fingerprints it is. And here you get none of that, partly for the time it's in, the 1800s, versus it being a finite book. Yeah. But still, I think what captivates and overrides that is the storytelling, is the mysticism that we are, as the players, get to dictate what the story is versus the game slightly hand-holding. And it's just kind of like, this still holds up in that genre. This isn't one of those where it's like, well, those 4 other games came out, we don't need to play this one anymore. Do you guys have any negatives on it? I
mean, other than just, it can be frustrating. Like, if you're just not ready for this, you definitely have to be in a certain mood to play it. Like,
oh, absolutely, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's not like a jovial, filler. It's not a worthless filler, where it's like, hey, let's just solve a case real quick.
Yeah.
let's just kind of, let's drink wine, let's get drunk and solve a case. This is like, yeah, no. Put on...
Yeah, more like get your violin and do heroin.
Put on your thinking caps, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely for people who want to deductively reason things out. Which I happen to be one.
Great.
And or for people who enjoy these kinds of mysteries and kind of get how, wait, that isn't quite how it usually turns out.
And it definitely helps to have people who are, because my thinking is so analytical. Like, I need to go to point A to point B. And it helps to have people who are like, well, what if point A went to point F? And then it went to D, and then went back to point B. What if all this other stuff? And I'm just like, I would never have thought of that. Wow, that ended up actually leading somewhere. You know,
I guess I'm a little frustrated that the starting point is so blank that you just don't have any real good way to start.
Yeah.
You pick something randomly, hope it turns out.
Yeah, that can be a little frustrating, just be like thrown out into the world.
I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right, because had we gone to Hyde Park, oh, she had a routine, she went to Hyde Park. I mean, scene of the crime, once again, is always pretty much the best way to go.
Yeah.
Because we were able to talk to it's like, oh, well, let's talk to the trains. And then it's like, okay, well, now we kind of got her routine. We should have just kind of followed her routine, but then it's like, there's so many just different little things in there where it's like, oh, well, if she took regular walks in the park, she was kidnapped in the city. And it's like, yeah, I don't think that way. I need the game to tell me that pretty much to help me personally. But that's where having multiple people who think differently, it helps like that. Well, you know, why was she? Yeah, if that was her routine every time, why was she kidnapped there? Oh, yes, good point. So
maybe something to think about. Suggestions.
Yeah,
to create different difficulty levels.
Right, and I think that's also kind of what why Sherlock Holmes is there.
Yeah, probably.
Like, because he's kind of like, oh, if you get stuck, go talk to him. I mean, he's 42, NW. Yeah.
Should have done that first.
Because, for example, if we actually went to him, it says, do you have circle C, F, J, T, or Z? And then that would have given us other stuff. So, like, circle T, if Toothy Ted sold his products to a chemist may be able to tell you where to find him.
Gotcha.
So, but it's always like, I don't want to go to Holmes. Like,
at least not without getting several.
He's sitting there just shooting up heroin. He's like, you fucking idiots. I had time to do 9 vials of heroin. However it comes in. But yeah, here is another frustrating thing about this game, specifically. We did case 1, we only had 1 newspaper. You do more cases, you have all the previous cases' newspapers, and that becomes annoying.
It is.
Because you never...
I was intimidated at that thought.
Yes.
About digesting that much information.
Yep, you almost at that point are like, you are a newspaper person. You are a newspaper guy. You do that kind of anyway. Like, you have a designated note taker, you have a designated reader, and you have kind of a newspaper person. Yeah. Anyone can do the London directory, but that kind of goes in hand with the one finding the stuff.
Although it might have been good to pass those responsibilities around, just because more people would have been looking at the paper than just me at that time. You might have noticed something I didn't. You wouldn't have, because I was spot on. But I've only got 2 pages of information.
Exactly. And I think that's why it usually helps, because it's like, if one person is the one only ever looking at it, then they're the ones only ever looking at it. Like, I'm not sitting here taking this from you and then looking at the same thing that you're looking at.
That's true.
But yeah, it definitely becomes very overwhelming whenever you're in case 10 and you have 10 newspapers.
And hopefully by then you're familiar with some of the information.
But because these are one-time plays, you're inclined not to just rush through them.
True.
It's like, oh, I want to savor these. I want to just have them. And it's like, then you come back and then you're just like, oh, God, there was something about an art gallery in case 1 and we're on case 7. Okay, how does this connect? Oh, Sherlock still did an 8 leads and we're on 73. I don't think we're getting 100 points, boys. You know. But, once again, like you mentioned, the score doesn't fucking matter. It's just, you just want to at least hope that you kind of got the fucking questions right. Like, that you didn't just waste 3 hours trying to solve a case and you're just like, weren't even close. And that definitely happens. It's like, okay, question 1. Who kidnapped? We don't even know who they are. All right, we already failed. Good thing we're not getting fired. So yeah, the good news is after playing all those new games that are in this genre, I'm glad to say this still holds up. It's still fun. And they keep making them. So there's 4 box sets with 10 in it. One of them is actually the Jack the Ripper. It's a miniseries. There's 4 connected cases about the women that he murdered. And that one I did so long ago I couldn't even remember how it was done. And it's interesting because he was never caught. So it's just like, well, the question isn't going to be who is Jack the Ripper.
It could be. They could have their own.
They have based off their studies. They have theories of who it might be, is what I remember, but it's never like a definitive.
No, what I mean is this is a work of fiction. So that box.
No, it goes off of the actual Jack the Ripper stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. It is the.
That's too bad. I'd like to blame somebody.
But I do remember it being fun. But yeah, we were very off at the very end. But yeah. I'm trying to think of other things, but I can't really think of it.
I think that's okay. Yeah.
It's a good, rich theme.
Yep.
So if
Very
you
literary.
Right, if you were to, I mean, because we've played Chronicles of Crime and Detective, Modern Crime board game, where would those two still be above this one?
For me, yeah.
Yeah. I'm still there. I think Chronicles of Crime and Detective Modern Crime, they go back and forth. I think Detective Modern Crime is still my favorite. They're actually about to come out with another one following the same mechanics, but it's Vienna Collection, which is like in the Cold War, I believe. But yeah, because that one, Detective Modern Crime, has a website that Portal Games has created. It's just so cool. And then Chronicles of Crime has the movement and a 3D. You have like VR goggles, so you get to look at the scene of the crime.
Goggles.
Huh?
I said, whoa, goggles.
VR glasses. But this one is very mechanical, but it's very well written. The cases, I think every single case we've done has been radically different, but they're all intense.
You cross your eyes.
I wouldn't sit here and be like, let's do another one. You know, I'm like, I am just so brain burned. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers covers all of it, unless you guys have anything else to mention, positives or negatives. No?
Pretty simple, straightforward.
All right, cool. On a scale of 1 to 10, Brett, I'm interested in your ranking.
Just for playing it, 9.
9?
For the creative element that went behind it, 10.
Wow.
I'm very impressed with what they put into creating it for us.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is I've done like 6 of the very first box. I've done the Jack the Ripper ones. I think I did one more that wasn't Jack the Ripper from that box. I've done one from the other one, and then now one from this one. So I've done 10 total from 4 different boxes, so at least 30 different cases. Because it's been so long, whenever we were going to do the original box, I was like, I could probably do the first one and would not know. It's like there was one of them, the Tin Soldier from that one, that I was like, I remember this one being really cool. But I don't remember any of the answers. Like, I couldn't sit there and be like, oh, I know. So, over time, like, you don't have to play 10 and then immediately get rid of it. You can take time and, like, be like I guarantee you, a year or so goes by, I'd be like, I don't remember this one.
Yeah.
In my head, I would like to think, oh, yeah, like, it was about tobacco or something. No, I probably wouldn't remember. So, but with all of those different cases, they have all been radically different. Some of them, it's like, I don't really care about this theme.
Right.
So, but, like, one of them I remember is about, like, a zoo. And it's like, oh, yeah. Which I remember we did really well on. So you go back and forth on scoring ones. We've gotten over 100, and then ones like this one where it's just like, yeah, we got fucking 0. I'm going to cut my wrists after this. Thanks, Sherlock Holmes. But wow, that is the highest score, I think, that you've given the game so far. Awesome. Kat?
I'm also going to give it a 9. For what it is. I mean, it's fun. It still holds up, even though games kind of overtook it. It's still like a very high ranking. Like, it's like, oh well, they just barely overtake it or something. I don't have a whole lot more to say. Like, we've already said a whole bunch about it, but I mean, yeah, I'll just give it a straight up 9.
Yeah. I think. I think I'm kind of with you guys on a 9. I was originally sitting around an 8 because those other games have come out that I enjoy much more. but this one does other stuff that those don't do. This one does kind of, it's very open-ended. You do have to, sometimes maybe in Detective Modern Crime, because that one really feels like it, but it is a game. You have cards, you have movement on a board and stuff. You really have to think, I think, a lot more in these than you do in the other ones, because it's all based on your note-taking. Mm-hmm. The other ones, you have the cards that, oh, hey, you pulled these ones out, so you have all these available in front of you. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, I mean, the fact that after all these years, I'm still enamored, and we still get to theorize, do all that stuff, and read a well-written case, and you get to look at a map and be like, okay, we were given nothing. Where the hell is Curzon Street? It's right here. That's where we're starting. And you don't really get that in the other ones. So yeah, I think for it being older, it becomes more classic, I guess. Which is pretty cool that a game, it's like it shows its age, but that's a positive for it.
Timeless.
Yeah. So I'm very impressed. This is actually the newest box. It came out last year, I think, 2020 or 2019. No, because I didn't go to Gen Con. This is what I bought off their store. Okay. So it was released last year. And the fact that each case has been gripping, yeah, I mean, they're doing a hell of a job. So yeah, I'm going to give it a 9 as well. So that's our thoughts on Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. Let us know what you think of the game in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.